Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here today to talk about oil infusion. So this is just a general overview. And what I'll be doing is I'll be linking to my full oil infusion playlist in the description box down below. So don't forget to check that out. That is where you'll find some of my different recipes for the 4 main infused oils that I make. One is for the oil that goes into my homemade skin cream. One is for my healing salve. One is for my joint and muscle rub. And the other one is for my hair growth oil that I massage into my scalp and sometimes even put into the ends of my hair. A couple of really important things I want to cover is the importance of making sure that when you're making your oil infusions that you're using dried herbs. Now, there's a couple of reasons for this. And one of those is to prevent what is very unlikely but still possible, and that is botulism. So when you're putting fresh herbs into oil, you can cause air and stuff to get trapped in there, and that could still be a possibility. Again, it is a very rare thing that we shouldn't have to fear, but at the same time, it is always good to take proper precautions just to be on the safe side. But the other thing is to prevent rancidity of the oil. So when I know some people do use fresh herbs when they're infusing in their oils, and in a lot of those cases, that's something they're going to be doing quickly anyway. Maybe they're using a heat application for that. And so it's going to be a quicker infusion. Maybe it's not going to be as much of a concern. However, I still recommend doing the dried herbs and then doing a room temperature infusion. Now, some herbs can handle heat without it, and it can actually draw out their medicinal benefits. You'll need to learn which ones those are. I just always take the safe route because some herbs, those different benefits and nutrients that are within them can be damaged whenever you're heating your oil. Just remember the fact that oil can heat much hotter and much quicker than, let's say, water or anything else that you may use as a solvent to extract the benefits from your different herbs and so on. And so for me, I always go room temperature infusion using only oils that are very shelf stable, heat stable. I do these infusions in the warmest room in my house. But even then, they're not getting direct sunlight. They're not directly exposed to heat. They're just getting the heat naturally from the room, from our wood stove. Now, some people do like doing their infusions in the sun. You can do that. Again, it's one of those things that this is just my personal opinion. I think the exposure to the sun and not keeping track of just how hot it's going to get, the sunlight and the heat could damage those herbs and make them not as potent as they could be. However, the one drawback to doing it the room temperature way is it's going to take a very minimum of 2 months. But I always go longer than that. In fact, I never bother straining out any of my oils until I need them. So sometimes they can sit for a year or two if I've got a lot of oils infusing. Like for example, this right here this one's already a year old. And so I always have a lot of oils infusing, several jars, at least 6 jars infusing at any given time for the skin cream because it is a product that I sell. And so I got to always make sure I have plenty, and I want it very well infused when I go to make the skin cream. So the longer it sits, the better it's going to infuse. Now, some people will say, well, after a certain amount of time, you can only pull so much from the herbs. And I get that. I believe that. However, I have found that when I've allowed oils to sit, there are certain ones like this one, like I said, this one's a year old. You can see it's got a pretty good olive green color to it right there, which is pretty nice. This one is my hair oil. This one isn't quite as old. I started it this year. I started it in January of 2025. So it's actually getting up there. So anyway, you can see it's taken on a little bit different color because I have different kind of herbs in here. One of those being the red pepper flakes. So that's why you're seeing a little bit different color in there. I had this one, I think it was the healing oil, and that one sat for a couple years. I knew I'd had some somewhere, and it got, again, buried to the back of a cabinet. And when I found it, it was very, very dark. And I'll put a picture of it here so you can see the color of it. And what that told me, it smelled great. There was nothing wrong with it. You know the rancid oil smell when you smell it. It was totally great. It was just very strong. And so allowing it to sit longer like that allowed a lot more to infuse into the oil. Now, some of that will also depend as far as color, what you're putting in there, and just how much you fill it up. I typically will fill my jars up about halfway of the dried herbs, spices, and whatever it is I'm using, and then pour the oil over that, shake it up really well, and then, making sure the lid's on tight, and then just set it where I want it and date it so I know how old it is when I get to it, and then just forget about it until I need it. As long as it's at least, the very, very least 2 months, then I will use it, but preferably much longer than that. Now, as far as the oil I use, I almost always go with avocado oil. In some cases, like with the hair oil and the muscle rub oil, I'll do a 50-50 blend of castor oil and the avocado oil. I've never found castor oil to go rancid, never had any issues with it, and never ever with the avocado for certain. By mixing the two, my personal opinion, again, some people will do infusions with just castor oil, but my personal opinion is castor oil, because it's very thick, it has a much higher viscosity than avocado oil, that thinning it out with the avocado oil will help it to infuse better and become stronger. But the castor oil adds benefits that can be good for helping with hair growth and for sore joints and muscles. Some people will just use castor oil on their joints and sore muscles. And so that was why it was one of those things I later on added into my joint and muscle rub oil. And that one I just use as an oil. I don't mix it with beeswax or anything. You can do that if you want to make it more of a salve. And then the other oil that I would recommend, I know there are others out there that are pretty heat stable. That's just the one, the avocado is the one I use the most. I have never tried fractionated coconut oil, but if you're going to do coconut oil, which is very, very heat stable as well, I recommend going with the fractionated coconut oil, especially if you live like me in a cooler climate where your coconut oil is always in a solid form. If it goes solid, it's not going to infuse near as well as when it stays in a liquid form. So this is why in that case, I would definitely go with a fractionated. In fact, I have recently added some fractionated coconut oil to my Vitacost cart, which is where I get a lot of things like my essential oils and stuff. I really want to try that one and see what I think, or at least even use that as a blend, because coconut oil isn't as rich as conditioning to the skin. It's good. It can be good for your skin, but if you have really dry skin, it's not always the best. If you have very oily skin, coconut oil can be a great option. But if you have very dry skin and you're wanting to use it, let's say for your skin cream, then I do use coconut oil in my skin cream in the set that I make, but it's also in addition to shea butter and the infused oil and beeswax, so it's not at all drying to me. Anyway, so that's just some things to think about, but I will be trying that, probably doing it as a blend rather than doing it separate. And anyway, I hope that answered a few questions. Again, don't forget to check out the oil infusion playlist I'll be putting in the description box down below so you can learn more and learn about some of the recipes I've created and what I use in them. And please share your thoughts and ideas and comments down below. And thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.